Okay, good afternoon. We're glad that you joined us for poetry in February. And today our program is called Poets on Poetry. It figures that if somebody spends their life writing poems, they might be interested in writing about writing poems too. So we'll see about that. I'm going to start off, but after me will come our readers Nancy Lynch, Connie Peterson, Pat Rach, Pat Huff, and Chuck Felling. And we hope that next month we'll be back together with Michael Chan and Mary Gutman, and that Mo will read with us. So here we go, Poets on Poetry. And this first poem is the only one that was written during the pandemic and about the pandemic. So after this one, we will leave the pandemic aside, but it is by Julia Alvarez, and it's called How Will This Pandemic Affect Poetry? And it's a series of questions. Will the lines be 6 feet apart? Will these hexameters be heroic like Homer's? Will each word have to be masked? Will there be poetry insecurity? Will there be enough poetry to go around? Will poems be our preferred form of travel? Will we undertake odysseys searching for Ithacas inside us? Will poetry go viral? Will its dis-ease infect us? Will it help build up antibodies against indifference? Will poems be the only safe spaces where we could gather together, enter their immense silences, see snakes slithering inside sestinas, listen to nightingales singing on the boughs of odes, hark, a lark in the terzarima, a hawk in a haiku? What if only poetry will see us through? What if this poem is the vaccine already working inside us? The next poem I'm going to read is a classic, Ars Poetica by Archibald Liesh. A poem should be palpable and mute as a globed fruit, dumb as old medallions to the thumb, silent as the sleeve-worn stone of casement ledges where the moss has grown. A poem should be wordless as the flight of birds. A poem should be motionless in time as the moon climbs, leaving as the moon releases twig by twig the night-entangled trees, leaving as the moon behind the winter leaves memory by memory the mind. A poem should be motionless in time as the moon climbs. A poem should be equal to, not true, for all the history of grief, an empty doorway and a maple leaf, for love, the leaning grasses and two lights above the sea. A poem should not mean, but be.
I will read 2 poems by Billy Collins. Introduction to Poetry. I ask them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say, drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe his way out, or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. And the next one is called The Great American Poem. If this were a novel, it would begin with a character, a man alone on a southbound train, or a young girl on a swing by a farmhouse. And as the pages turned, you would be told that it was morning or the dead of night, and I, the narrator, would describe for you the miscellaneous clouds over the farmhouse and what the man was wearing on the train, right down to his red tartan scarf, and the hat he tossed into the rack above his head, as well as the cows sliding past his window. Eventually, one can only read so fast, you would learn either that the train was bearing the man back to the place of his birth or that he was headed into the vast unknown. And you might just tolerate all of this as you waited patiently for shots to ring out in a ravine where the man was hiding, or for a tall, raven-haired woman to appear in a doorway. But this is a poem, not a novel. And the only characters here are you and I, alone in an imaginary room, which will disappear after a few more lines, leaving us no time to point guns at one another or toss our clothes into a roaring fireplace. I ask you, who needs the man on the train, and who cares what his black valise contains? We have something better than all this turbulence lurching toward some ruinous conclusion. I mean the sound that we will hear as soon as I stop writing and put down this pen. I once heard someone compare it to the sound of crickets in a field of wheat, or more faintly, just the wind over that field, stirring things that we will never see.
Eating Poetry by Mark Strand. Ink runs from the corners of my mouth. There is no happiness like mine. I have been eating poetry. The librarian does not believe what she sees. Her eyes are sad, and she walks with her hands in her dress. The poems are gone, the light is dim, the dogs are on the basement stairs and coming up. Their eyeballs roll. Their blonde legs burn like brush. The poor librarian begins to stamp her feet and weep. She does not understand when I get on my knees and lick her hand. She screams. I am a new man. I snarl at her and bark. I romp with joy in the bookish dark. Sonnet 76 by William Shakespeare. Why is my verse so barren of new pride? So far from variation or quick change? Why, with the time, do I not glance aside to newfound methods and to compounds strange? Why write I still all one, ever the same, and keep invention in a noted weed, that every word doth almost tell my name, showing their birth and where they did proceed? Oh no, sweet love, I always write of you, and you and love are still my argument. So all my best is dressing old words new, spending again what is already spent. For as the sun is daily new and old, so is my love still telling what is told.
The next poem is Digging by Seamus Heaney. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. Under my window, a clean, rasping sound when the spade sinks into gravelly ground. My father digging, I look down till his straining rump among the flower beds bends low, comes up 20 years away, stooping in rhythm through the potato drills where he was digging. The coarse boot nestled on the lug, and the shaft against the inside knee has levered firmly. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep to scatter new potatoes that we picked, loving their cool hardness in our hands. By God, the old man could handle a spade, just like his old man. My grandfather cut more turf in a day than any other man on Toner's bog. Once I carried him milk in a bottle, corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it and then fell to right away, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving sods over his shoulder, going down and down for the good turf, digging. The cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge through living roots awaken in my head. But I have no spade to follow men like them. Between my fingers and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I'll dig with it. And the next poem is entitled Poem by Donald Justice. This poem is not addressed to you. You may come into it briefly, but no one will find you here. No one. You will have changed before the poem will. Even while you sit there, unmovable, you have begun to vanish, and it does not matter. The poem will go on without you. It has the spurious glamour of certain voids. It is not sad, really, only empty. Once perhaps it was sad. No one knows why. It prefers to remember nothing. Nostalgias were peeled from it long ago. Your type of poetry has no place here. Night is the sky over this poem. It is too black for stars. And do not look for any illumination. You neither can nor should understand what it means. Listen, it comes without guitar, neither in rags nor any purple fashion. There is nothing in it to comfort you. Close your eyes, yawn. It'll be over soon. You will forget the poem, but not before it has forgotten you. It does not matter. It has been most beautiful in its erasures. Oh, bleached mirrors, oceans of the drowned, nor is one silence equal to another, and it does not matter what you think. This poem is not addressed to you.
My poem is The Day is Done by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The day is done, and the darkness falls from the wings of night as a feather is wafted downward from an eagle in his flight. I see the lights of the village gleam through the rain and the mist, and a feeling of sadness comes o'er me that my soul cannot resist. A feeling of sadness and longing that is not akin to pain and resembles sorrow only as the mist resembles the rain. Come, read to me some poem, some simple and heartfelt lay that shall soothe this restless feeling and banish the thoughts of the day. Not from the grand old masters, not from the bards sublime, whose distant footsteps echo through the corridors of time. For like strains of martial music, their mighty thoughts suggest life's endless toil and endeavor. And tonight I long for rest. Read from some humble poet whose songs gushed from his heart as showers from the clouds of summer or tears from the eyelids start. Who through long days of labor and nights devoid of ease still heard in his soul the music of wonderful melodies. Such songs have power to quiet the restless pulse of care and come like the benediction that follows after prayer. Then read from the treasured volume the poem of thy choice and lend to the rhyme of the poet the beauty of thy voice. And the night shall be filled with music, and the cares that infest the day shall fold their tents like the Arabs and as silently steal away.
This is a poem by Herman Melville. It's entitled Art. In the placid hours, well pleased we dream of many a brave unbodied scheme, but formed to lend, pulse life create, what unlikely things must meet and mate. A flame to melt, a wind to freeze, sad patience, joyous energies, humility, yet pride and scorn, instinct and study, love and hate, audacity, reverence. These must mate and fuse with Jacob's mystic heart to wrestle with the angel art. This is In My Craft or Sullen Art by Dylan Thomas. In my craft or sullen art, exercised in the still night, when only the moon rages and the lovers lie abed with all their griefs in their arms, I labor by singing light, not for ambition or bread, or the strut and trade of charms on the ivory stages, but for common wages of their most secret heart. Not for the proud man apart from the raging moon I write on these spendthrift pages, nor for the towering dead with their nightingales and psalms, but for the lovers, their arms round the griefs of the ages, who pay no praise or wages, nor heed my craft and art. Thanks to all of the readers and all of you for coming. This is the final poem of the day. Fitting, I think. So you all take care. Be well. Thanks, Michelle.